In the world of One Piece, Oda has created a ginormous roster of eccentric characters, and unfortunately, as the story goes on, a lot of fan-favorite characters and their abilities are getting more and more power-crept and phased out of the story. So I figured, why not give a spotlight to some of these characters and highlight just how strong they could be if we push them to their limit. And today I want to start off with talking about Bartholomew Kuma, and when it comes to thinking about someone's full potential being squandered, Kuma is the first person that comes to mind for several reasons. His kind nature and pacifistic mentality would never allow him to pursue and tap into more violent methods and strategies when using his powers, and his time spent as a tool for Saturn and the Celestial Dragons to save his daughter Bonnie took away any time he could have spent getting stronger. And whether or not he makes a comeback and starts popping off in the final arc is up in the air given his current condition. But in spite of those drawbacks, Kuma was still one of the strongest members to ever be a part of the Revolutionary Army to this day, and that strength he possesses in canon allowed for him to become a warlord of the sea that had the entire world shook when it was announced. And being a legitimate warlord would automatically put you in that mid to high commander tier strength, which is pretty impressive all things considered. But if we take an unhindered Kuma that doesn't mind getting more creative with how he handles his opponents, he could easily become one of the strongest characters in the verse. And it all stems from the power of the Pawpaw Fruit. Despite how basic and plain this ability initially looked, the ability to repel anything is absolutely absurd. Keep in mind as well that repelling anything isn't even an exaggeration, it's flat out stated that this is the main application of the fruit's powers in Kuma's original Vivre card. And as we all know, Kuma can launch his compressed air at his opponents that are very dangerous, but what I want to focus on is his ability to repel even intangible concepts. Like, let's go ahead and start on the first time he displays this ability back in Thriller Bark. We'll just call this ability Miracle Hand, since that's what the elderly of the Sorbet Kingdom called Kuma every time he used this ability. And Miracle Hands is without question one of the most broken abilities in the verse, especially in the hands of someone like an unrestrained Kuma, because of one simple question. In a one-on-one fight, what would stop this absolute tank of a being from taking all the pain he received from his opponent and just slamming them back with it? Miracle Hands is essentially Kuma having a free Uno reverse card in his back pocket at all times. To quote Kuma himself when he used it on Luffy during Thriller Bark, "What I extracted from his body just now is pain and suffering. This is the sum total of anguish inflicted during his battle with Moria and his band." So essentially, as long as he's able to endure his opponent's attacks, he can simply remove all the punishment he received during the battle and slam it back at them. What's worse is that it's not like there is a cap to this ability either. Based on Luffy and the elderly after the pain extraction, they were completely fine, so it's more than just feeling pain, but genuine healing, so long as the pain hits another target. And given just how much pain Kuma can endure due to his buccaneer physiology, this ability being weaponized this way is genuinely horrifying. And notice how Kuma simply tossed over a piece of Luffy's pain towards Zoro. As we already know, Kuma can launch his paw cannons at exceedingly faster speeds. Imagine you're in a team fight and Kuma uses that ability to hit multiple people at once. This could be really effective with picking off weaker people and a creative way to get rid of excess pain he received in battle so it doesn't end up returning to him. Essentially, in a one-on-one fight, this power is already quite deadly, but facing off against larger groups or even entire armies, as he's done with his time with the revolutionaries, will always allow him to have available targets to transfer all of his pain into. But it gets even worse, because imagine you're in a heated battle with an opponent and all of a sudden you forget everything mid-fight, or just as detrimental, your opponent lands an attack on you and then all of a sudden they are aware of every ability in your arsenal and can figure out ways to avoid and counter your attacks with better proficiency than before. Again, this ability has no official name, but we'll just call it Memory Hands to keep it simple and consistent with Miracle Hands. Back in 1072, we see Kuma use this ability based on Vegapunk's theory on the application of the Pawpaw Fruit's powers, allowing for Kuma to make a copy of his own memories. In terms of intel gathering, this might be the most effective ability in the verse, because it doesn't matter if your enemy tries to resist you, you can make a perfect copy on the history of one person's life and essentially download it into your brain. Any weaknesses that your opponent may have, powerful abilities they haven't used yet, or special equipment that they might be carrying, all that information Kuma is now perfectly aware of, and given just how versatile the canon abilities of the Pawpaw Fruit already are, that information will be perfect for setting up strategies that would allow for him to win the fight. And to add on, the next part I'm going to say is indeed not canon, and I'm not stating anything to be a 100% fact, but given how the pawpaw fruit functions, I think it is incredibly likely for Kuma to have the ability of removing one's memories instead of just making a perfect copy of them. As we already went over before, his view card says he can repel anything, and we clearly see in Thriller Bark and in the Sorbet Kingdom that he isn't making copies of someone's pain and suffering, but removing them completely from their body. So the idea of partial or complete memory removal should be possible for someone like Kuma. The concept itself isn't even foreign to One Piece, considering Pudding was able to remove Reiju's memories back in Whole Cake Island with her powers. We have seen multiple times where two different fruits can do the same thing. Whitebeard and Sengoku can both produce shockwaves. Despite Big Mom herself being the user of the soul fruit, Law has shown that he can manipulate souls within his operating room. Shiki has telekinesis with his powers to make anything he touches float, which isn't exclusive ability given Fujitori's manipulation of gravity. And speaking of gravity manipulation, that is something Blackbeard as well has access to via his darkness fruit. So again, he hasn't explicitly shown the ability to remove someone's memories, but it shouldn't be outside of his wheelhouse. And again, imagine fighting someone and all of a sudden you forget how to use a certain ability or just get full-blown amnesia mid-battle. Kuma can either bully his opponents due to memory loss, or if he was feeling extremely out of character and malicious, could have his opponents join him while manipulating them while they have amnesia. And a truly disgusting combination of his abilities would be to use the memory wiping ability of Memory Hands in combination with his ability to launch people for 3 days and 3 nights and leave his opponent stranded on one of the many dangerous islands in the world of One Piece. Giving someone a case of permanent amnesia and then tossing them to some horrible part of the world with no understanding with how they ended up there or how to survive might be one of the most brutal ways Kuma could use his powers against somebody. And speaking of that ability, something I always thought was a waste was why doesn't Kuma just toss people into the ocean more often? The oceans of One Piece, especially on the Grand Line, are exceedingly dangerous. For certain characters, sure, you could argue that they might be able to fight off a Sea King or two after being tossed into the ocean, but if they aren't a good navigator, there is no telling how long someone could survive out in the open waters. In a battle against another Devil Fruit user, this ability unironically has one-shot potential for anyone who can't fly or have the ability to make a construct that would allow them to survive when they touch down on the water. Not to mention that removing your opponent for a little bit is one thing, but imagine taking someone off the board for days on end. Imagine if Kuma was trying to liberate a kingdom, but it's being controlled by legitimately strong fighters. Hurling that opposition away to either dangerous islands or towards the sea would not only cripple enemy forces, but would allow for himself as well as anyone he's trying to protect to have time to recover and reestablish themselves for multiple days. But like any discussion of a One Piece character's Devil Fruit ability, let's take some time now to theorycraft on what exactly Kuma's awakening would be. Although he is a Paramecia Devil Fruit user, he likely wouldn't be turning his surroundings into a substance and manipulating it like Doflamingo or Katakuri with their strings and mochi respectfully. Kuma would most likely fall into the category that Kid and Law fall under, where they just directly affect their opponents, such as Law with his Kroom and Re-Room ability and Kid with the Sign. With all the information we currently have, I think the most appropriate ability for Kuma's awakening would be the complete removal of someone's soul from their body. We already know Kuma can remove abstract and intangible things such as pain and memories, and during that discussion with Vegapunk theorizing about the pawpaw fruit, they were literally talking about how the soul does exist, which, should be obvious given the existence of Big Mom, but the point is that the concept isn't foreign to Kuma himself. I think his paw cannons upon landing could essentially remove the soul from his opponent's body, assuming that this would be his awakening. This would essentially be a one-shot ability, because even though the soul would return to the body if nothing happens, in the meantime, the body would be left vulnerable for Kuma to take out. So essentially, their opponent can't allow for a single hit from Kuma to land or it's GG's. If you are fighting with allies, you have to pray your teammate would be able to protect you while your soul is removed, or you yourself would have to keep your teammates alive if their soul gets pushed out. But the worst part about the augmented paw cannons is trying to avoid Kuma, and then he pulls out Ursa Shock. Given the wide range the attack covers, this would make trying to avoid Kuma's awakening even harder than just the normal paw cannons. And obviously, just like we've seen with other awakening abilities, in exchange for such a powerful ability, the cost would be extreme loss of stamina while using these altered paw cannons. But given how strong this potential ability could be, I would rule it as a very fair exchange. So in conclusion, we have made Kuma into a combatant who is able to slam his opponents with any damage he may take himself, download the memories of his targets to know everything about them, including sensitive information, weaknesses, abilities, or equipment that they might use in battle or have access to, a Kuma who could partially or fully erase his target's memories and is willing to send them to the most dangerous areas on the planet and have them risk dying at sea if they can't navigate out of the situation they're in or receive help, and a Kuma who has the ability to remove people's souls from their bodies. Genuinely a terrifying opponent, hands down. I don't know about you, but I'd 100% put this full potential Kuma well into those top tier ranges. Honestly, with how dangerous the powers are, Kuma might be in its own special weight class. But what do you guys think? Do you like this full potential breakdown? There's plenty of other characters in the verse I could do this for, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below. And also a very special thanks to the GOAT Tiberius for making this great thumbnail for me. Follow him on Twitter or subscribe to his personal channel or the Hisaku Hideout podcast he's a part of. And with that being said, this video is over. I hope you guys have a great day and please stay safe. Peace.